What is up, my triggers? Eccentric Hat here. Welcome to another episode of MRAdio. Today we have a special guest, Andrew, who's going to tell us all about his work, which I'm sure most of you will find absolutely enthralling in a way that we haven't been able to show you yet. So please sit back, relax, and enjoy a very significant and very different episode of MRAdio.
Welcome, Andrew.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to be here.
So, Andrew, tell us in a couple of words why you are engaged with men's issues. What is your focus? Where do you come from? What's your story?
Yeah, I mean, I've got 3 boys under 7, and that's really why I'm sort of speaking out more now. Really, most of my sort of campaigning work, such as it is around men's experiences of domestic abuse, because it's something that I went through in my marriage, in my former marriage. I was married from 1999 to 2008, and that was really the period of struggling with it. And I did a TEDx talk about it, and then also, sorry,
I recommend that.
Oh,
very high.
Thank
really
you. Thank you. No, I appreciate
it.
Thank you. I mean, and then also I went through the family court stuff, an unusual experience really, because I actually won custody of my daughters when I had my contact blocked by my ex-wife. But then my ex-wife tried to take it back to court years later to have the decision reversed. So then I was fighting in court as the resident parent, accused of parental alienation. So I guess kind of through my experiences, I've got all kinds of angles and opinions on gender and experiences of prejudice, and so I speak out about it now, and I do some support. I'm involved in setting up a project in Hertfordshire. I'm not the lead, I'm sort of co-leading and helping to organise that to support male survivors of domestic abuse. And really, you know, the one observation that's really hit me hard this year, coming back off the TEDx talk, is the amount of women that have contacted me saying it happened to their brother, their uncle, their son, their partner, and that he didn't report it at the time, but he was in a really bad way about it. And so we hear these stats that, you know, a third of domestic abuse victims are male, and they're the stats that we have. But, you know, the sheer scale of underreporting, we just don't know what that is yet.
No. And there are so many reasons, you know, for men to not report. You know, in your TEDx talk, you mentioned that you didn't, until your neighbour said, you know, this is domestic abuse, you didn't kind of acknowledge the fact that it was, and you felt like you were driving her to it, and there was something that, you know, some way of behaving that would mitigate what was going on.
Yeah, I mean, I truly believe that I was a bumbling idiot and a wimp for allowing this to happen, and a proper man wouldn't allow that. You know, a proper man, his wife wouldn't want to hit him and kick him and humiliate him and all the rest of it. And so absolutely, I truly didn't recognise it. If I was talking to someone today who's working in the domestic abuse space, supporting male victims, and she says, often when people ring in, if it's a man, the first thing he'll say is, listen, don't laugh, right? Don't laugh, but I'm experiencing this thing or whatever it is. And so I do think in culture, you know, we've seen it with the experiments where, you know, if a woman is hitting a bloke in public, it's a pantomime. It's something to be laughed at. And I hope that's beginning to change now with the whole kind of speaking out about mental health in general. But we've got a long way to go.
I do think, you know, I think it is changing, but I recall, I've forgotten who said it. It might be someone in this box. But one of my friends said he was at a barbecue and his cousin, I think it was, had pulled up his shirt and showed all these scratch marks and said that, you know, his wife or girlfriend had left them, and everybody was laughing about it.
Yeah.
It was like, how funny is this kind of, you know?
I have a question to Andrew, and first I want to share my experience, and I would actually like to know, Elizabeth, yours opinion, of course yours as well, Eccentrik had, and yours, Andrew. Because you experienced coercive control, Andrew, is that correct?
Yeah.
Amongst other things. And when I look around, I see a lot of behaviors that could be seen as coercive control by women. I personally see very little of that from men executed against women, but that could be the case because it's more private, and there might be different dynamics. As a hairdresser, for example, it is absolutely common that women tell their husbands how they have to wear their hair and if they can or cannot wear a beard. Where I've never seen in public a man saying to his wife, I don't want you to do that. Sometimes I hear women saying, my husband prefers me to have longer hair or shorter hair, but that seems to be happening in the private sphere, where women are very open about controlling how their husband should look, how their husband should behave. I see quite often, or relatively often, that women call their husbands idiots, or but in a funny way. And I'm not saying that's coercive control, because sometimes it's just the dynamic of the relationship. But as a society, I think we don't take controlling behavior by women serious, and we actually think that men need to be controlled by women, where the other way around, it's clearly seen as abusive. Now, I'm interested in Elizabeth and all of your opinions. Do you think there is more coercive control from women towards men, and is it actually okay for men?
Yeah, I do think that as a society we accept controlling behaviours from women directed towards men. And as you know, because I know a lot of families, I do notice things, and you know, I will talk to mum friends and hear stories like, you know, one friend of mine, or she's not a close friend, but someone I know, was talking about how her husband wanted to go on a skiing do with one of his best friends, and so she insisted that he jumped on through a load of hoops in order to earn the privilege to go on this stag do. And all, you know, our friends were kind of tapping her on the back and saying, well done for getting some and all this kind of stuff. And I was just thinking, my God, like, you know, everything to go and celebrate a major life event with one of their best friends, you know, without having to jump through hoops to earn their partner's permission. I found it quite disturbing. And I hear a lot of these kind of little anecdotes, and yeah, you know, women speaking in a sort of derogatory way to their male partners in public, in a way that would never be accepted the other way around. And I think it's unhealthy and unhelpful. And, you know, I really hope that we are going to start reassessing what is appropriate behaviour.
Yeah.
Andrew?
Well, you know, I wonder whether part of it is just there's like a kickback where the whole thing of girl power and raising girls up has just almost gone so far. And, you know, I was noticed on LinkedIn, here's an example. A few weeks ago, there was a post about how girls need to aim high and boys need to learn to respect girls. And it's like, hang on a second, we need to teach our girls and our boys to aim high and respect each other. And so I do think that, you know, it saddens me that it's almost this gender division, this gender clashing, it's almost encouraged. And when you call it out, what usually happens, because I did call it out, as I tend to, get like a load of people saying, oh yeah, no, that's great, absolutely right. And then you get all these people coming in saying, listen, I'm tired of this whataboutery. And, just because we're raising up girls, doesn't mean, we weren't saying that we shouldn't be raising up boys. And so, I mean, for me, I think it's important when we're posting stuff, when we're writing, talking about stuff, that we're really supportive of women and men, of girls and boys, respecting each other, standing together in solidarity about stuff. It's important we think about the language that we use, because I do think we've come to a point where there's just so much gender resentment. And, listen, our world is facing huge challenges. We need to face it together. Yeah.
Ed?
I think that it is there, and that it's on the surface we are aware of it. We're just not doing anything about it. For example, if you go looking up jokes about the genders, quite a lot of them actually do involve joking about coercive control. For example, I wanted a cat, my wife wanted a dog, so we compromised and got a dog. There is recognition of this, but not in the respect that it deserves, not in the negative sense. However, we have picked up on it subliminally. I think it's perfectly possible that in the past, both genders were coercive towards each other, both genders were controlling to certain extents, and that with the efforts of feminism, we have eradicated it among men, because men are scared to express themselves in so many ways. But just like Andrew suggested, through empowering women, we've perhaps made it so that it's even more prominent than it was before. Women are not in any way ashamed to tell a man what they think of them. I mean, it's like I used to say about when it comes to oppression. If oppression is the fear of speaking out against someone, are men afraid to speak out against feminists? Are feminists afraid to speak out against men? So I would definitely say that it is indeed present, and we have noticed it. We just are not ready yet to appreciate the negative aspects of it.
So when it comes to coercive control, and when I look at the Duluth model, the power and control wheel, there are quite a few things on there that I think are perfectly normal behaviors in relationships, if not done in excess and if done in respect. So for example, if you say, "Oh, are you sure you want to wear this? I don't think it suits you very well." I think that's a completely normal thing to say in a relationship. And there was, for example, when coercive control was included in the domestic abuse law in Scotland, there was an advertisement about domestic abuse. And it was, does he tell you that he doesn't like your makeup? Does he tell you that you shouldn't wear this dress? Does he tell you that he doesn't like your friends? Blah, blah, blah. This is domestic abuse. And I'm like, no, it's not. It could be, but it's not per definition. And I think they villainize completely normal behaviors, and don't make it 100% clear where the abuse starts, or where normal behavior stops and where abuse starts. And I think it depends on how you feel about it. If you feel mistreated, if you are afraid to go home, if you feel like crap when you go home, I think you should question yourself, why? And that still doesn't mean that your partner is abusive, but it might mean that you and your partner really need to talk about how you respect each other. I
completely agree. My best friend is a female, and our relationship has a lot of banter in it that includes both of us kind of calling each other idiots and so on and so forth. In truth, I tend to be more sort of banter towards her. she's a very, very soft, like friendly, lovely, not particularly overly talkative person. So it more comes from me to her. And I have actually been stopped before in public when I was in a supermarket by a man who claimed to be a police officer. He certainly didn't act like one in the slightest, but he said that what I was doing was domestic abuse. You know, because I was like, for example, I think it was I was making jokes. I was winding her up. She told me that she was getting on very well with her parents that day, and she was very happy about it. I told her I didn't care. The truth is, she'd actually told me that 3 times already, and the first 2 times I'd been very pleased for her. The third time I told her I didn't care as a joke, but it is something that has come up before, where I've worried about the banter that I have with her, because I would have exactly the same banter with a male friend. I have had exactly the same banter with a male friend, and I adore the way that we can communicate with each other. I adore how fun and free it is, and it genuinely entertains her. And she knows, because I've said it to her 1,000 times. She knows that if ever I said something that annoyed her or upset her, I would immediately change what I was doing or my behavior. She only has to say that. And to the point is that it's actually only when I start fretting about her, whether I'm upsetting her or not, that's what annoys her. So I could phone her up and say, hey, listen, you know, you're a total waste of space and I absolutely despise you, and that's totally fine. But if I phoned her up and said, hey, am I annoying you? Is this upsetting you? Is there anything wrong with my tone of voice? She would tell me to piss off. You know, so that's, I do believe that, as Philip was saying, you know, it depends on context, it depends on the relationship. She knows that that all the things I say have absolutely no basis in reality, and that all she would have to do is tell me, and I would stop. And I don't want to live in a world where people see malevolence everywhere and they don't allow people to be adults. You know, she and I were the same age. We're both in our mid-20s, and I would be horrified if someone came along with, you know, a big ruler and smacked it down between us because they don't trust us to be friends in our own way. They have to dictate what our friendship would be for our own safety.